Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're here. This is my new platform bringing you the most up-to-date, groundbreaking information from some of the best minds within the natural products industry, as well as voices outside the industry, with all of them together bringing us great messages, stories to share, because let's face it, everybody wants to tell a tale, and you never know where you're going to get that inspiration to make a change in your life and in your world. If you like what I'm doing, please consider giving me a like, a share, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. You know, better yet, I would love you to do all three. You're going to love my guest today. My guest is a very longtime friend and a longtime radio partner, if you will. We did so many shows together over the years, and I've heard him so many times speaking, so this is going to be fun. Mark Kaylor is with us today, and as you can see by all the information right below, you're going to see what an incredible person he is, a go-getter, an industry insider. So I think you're going to enjoy it, so sit back and enjoy. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Pleasure to be back.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. We've had rain for 5 days, which keeps the temperature down here in Georgia, so I'm all happy with it. I guess I shouldn't be saying that to you living in Vegas, so I apologize. Rain and cooler temperatures, not in your bailiwick, right?
No, and we're heating up now. You know, we're running in the 90s right now. We'll be in the hundreds probably, I'd say, consistently in the next week or so. But you know, it's like I tell everybody all the time, unless you're really out in it. I mean, we have horses, so we're out in it a lot. But for most people go from the house to the car to the store to the car to the house. You know, so they're really not out in it. And, you know, most people have air conditioning, so it's not a big deal. And every year people say the same thing. Was it this hot last year? Yes, yeah. It was. And those are the same people that in December say, it's really cold. Was it this cold last year? Yes, it was. So we're used to it. It just takes a while to adjust. So I got to tell you, I'm so happy to have you here. I've been blessed to hear you lectures, hear you live, do radio shows with you. I read articles that you've written. I follow you. I think that you have so much to offer this industry. And why don't you let everybody know what's new in your world, your website, and how they can find you as well?
Yeah, my most recent effort, while I still consult the natural products industry, it's building up my website and my not-for-profit. My not-for-profit is called Radiant Health Project, and the website is called Journey to Radiant Health. And the whole idea there is to impart information to help people basically be the best you can possibly be. I mean, I don't mean to sound trite like that, but I really strongly believe that the vast majority of us really operate below what we're capable of doing. And I think there are a lot of things we can do, some very simple, easy things, you know, like getting a good night's sleep, eating a plant-based diet, lowering your stress levels versus, you know, botanicals and mushrooms and supplements and things that can augment that process, particularly since we live in a world, you know, fraught with issues, you know, air pollution, plastics everywhere. You know, I just read an article today about plastics contributing to global warming now more than they thought. So, you know, there are a number of issues that I think we can address and we can do things about on our own end to really maximize our health and vitality. So really the long-term goal is to improve health span and to improve lifespan. So you live longer and you live better for that time that you're living longer.
Making ourselves a priority, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's a very important part of the health and healing process. And unfortunately, many of us don't wake up to that until we get hit with, you know, the so-called frying pan, that chronic disease, which says either you pay attention to yourself or there are going to be severe consequences. So I'm hoping that this will reach people before it gets to that point, you know, like the voice that you are. I mean, you know, there are a number of people that are out there trying to get this message out to people. It's like, you know, wake up, pay attention, you know, take care of yourself. You know, you can, if you take care of yourself, you can do a better job taking care of others too. And I think that's an important part of the process too.
You know, and I agree 100%. And, you know, this industry for both of us has been a very, very long journey. And, you know, we've seen a lot of things. Do you feel that we're going in the right direction within our industry still?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm really mixed. I think we're really at a pivot point. With its success, has come other things. You have a lot of companies and businesses now that are investing in the natural products industry who 10 years ago, 20 years ago, would never even, given us a second look. Now you have pharmaceutical companies that own vitamin companies. You have the big food companies that have bought up the various natural foods and vegetarian lines. The household cleaners, which were natural, are bought up by the bigger companies. So that brings its own list of concerns. Do they maintain the same integrity? There are questions that I have with that. As we get more successful, it's going to pull in a lot of people who are going to be in there for the quick buck. So
Yep.
we have at the same time some of the best products supplement wise coming out that we've ever had. The science and things behind it is just truly amazing. Your company, they're doing amazing things with that regenerative agriculture, taking things to a new level. But at the same time, you have people who see this and see it as dollar signs, and they'll throw, let's just say, less than maximal product quality out there in the marketplace. And the sad thing is for the consumer, to a large degree, that's one of the questions I always get is how do I tell? And
Yep.
to a large degree, you can. I try to say, look at the company as a whole, see what the company is about, see what they do, see what their history is. Then you get a sense of, you can probably feel better about their product line. If it's somebody that you just never heard of, it just popped up, it's a flip of the coin. So, yeah, I think there's some really great things happening and some concerning things happening. What's your take on that?
I agree. I agree 100%. And I think that the public, the consumer, is starting to press the accelerator toward having more transparency.
Yep.
And I think that that is really, really important. I know that when I'm looking for things today, whether it's in my industry or anything in general, I try to be choosing companies that are very transparent and are not hiding things under the surface. I've always had a disdain, a personal, nothing else, but a personal disdain for a proprietary label, because
Yeah.
sometimes with the proprietary label, it's basically a paragraph with everything but the kitchen sink listed in it. And then there's like a milligram dosage of 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams within that proprietary blend. But you don't know what you're getting. And you don't know how much of what you're getting. And to me, that's a personal thing that bothers me. I want to see a label where I have a better understanding of what I have in there. I mean, if it's one or two things together in a proprietary, I get that. But if you got 30 things there, how do I know what I'm getting? What am I paying for? What is my chances of success with so many things fighting for room within the tablet or capsule?
Yeah, I
You
agree
know?
totally with that. The greens area and the multivitamin area are areas that I think are most guilty of that type of thing. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen multis that have all the vitamins and all the minerals in them. Then they have 30 herbs. They got 10 green foods, 10 other food substances. How much blueberry are you going to actually have in that multivitamin, so to speak? So yeah, be leery of that. Again, I'm all for. I want to see what's in the product. Give me the milligrammage. Let me know what I'm actually getting.
Yeah, and I think that today it's funny because I was having a conversation with a group the other day and I was talking about way back in like 1981. I was working, of course, with Great Earth Vitamins way back then with Earl Mindell. And, I was doing inventory at a store in Westwood, which is right next door to UCLA. And it was after hours. We're doing inventory and there's a knock at the back door. And that manager of that store said, "Oh, it's no big deal. It's the doctors." And I'm like, the doctors. So she went to the back and there were two doctors there and they were there to pick up their orders of their vitamins that were
Oh my
already
gosh.
ready. And I just, me, I can't keep quiet. I said, "How come you're doing it now?" And they're like, "Well, it's just easier than trying to explain to everybody why we're at a health food store." And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now it's so funny because now I go to hospitals and medical conventions where I'm talking to doctors, answering questions for them because now they're inquisitive and there's a lot more of an open door understanding and maybe more of a desire to learn a little bit more, a lot more actually, when we had, 40 some odd years ago when I first started, because I'm in my 46th year, so there was none back then. I mean, it was like witchcraft and voodoo back then. And now today it's gone from a luxury and something that's nice to think about to we've screwed everything up so much that now it's a hands down necessity to rebuild and fill these voids that we're creating by our bad choices.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and you can see that you can go into grocery stores now, and they carry small vitamin shops in their grocery
Yep,
stores nowadays.
they
So
do. They do.
it's nice because it's becoming accessible to more people, and in the long run, that's a plus. I think as long as more people have access to this, only good things can come out of it. Fingers crossed.
And I love I love the idea of the internet and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword because there's a
A
lot of
little?
misinformation. Well, okay,
Come
I'm being
on.
nice. I'm being nice. There's a lot of misinformation because, when I first started, my first, I'd say 20 years of my radio show, any information I got was from a few isolated authors and research books at the library that I couldn't even check out. I had to go there, do my research, and then be able to do my shows. And today there's tons of information, but I do like that we're available to like PubMed, and we can read published studies, and we can see what people are doing, because you can take that information and use it and run with it and really teach it correctly. And but I think information is just something that's getting to be a little bit better, and I think people are asking more questions.
Yeah, I think the source is really important when we talk about this. Don't get your health news from TikTok. If you see something on there and it's intriguing to you, then go to PubMed, go to MD, some of the other sites. Do a little more exploration beyond just the latest craze. And that's the one area that I have some issues as far as our industry and the internet. It's like every 6 months we've got a new craze. Everybody's doing this, and 6 months later, no one is doing that. Now they're doing some new thing. So I always say beware the craze. You look at the science, and you're so right. We have so much more access to that stuff. I just love it. I mean, I could literally spend all day, every day, just going through these things. It's now there's so much it's hard to keep up with it.
Well, and the thing about it is we're in a different place in our let's just say our country. The state of health in our country has changed dramatically. We have all this technology today. We have the know-how. We have the availability of supplementation. We have all this information at our fingertips that we didn't have before. Yet our level of health and well-being and mental health are crashing and burning. And, the food companies, they've learned how to make terrible garbage taste fantastic, and people gravitate toward it like they're hooked on it, like it's crack. And the thing about it is we know better. I mean, we do know better, and we really want to make a change, but nobody ever said it was going to be easy. And our problem is instantaneous gratification that has come to us from so many other parts of our life, and we expect everything to happen overnight. We all want that magic wand. I'm guilty. I'd love a magic wand. I think it'd be fantastic to wave it and make everything perfect and wonderful, but it's not the way it works, But the average person out there is thinking, how come this isn't happening faster?
And these foods they are designed to be addictive. I mean, Doritos is the leading example of that. They brought food scientists in really early on and said, what do we have to do to make people want that next chip, the next bag? And they call it the perfect junk food because it is so extraordinarily successful. If you look at the ingredients in that, it's like, yeah, do you really want to be consuming that stuff? So, yeah, read that gets us back to, read the labels.
I agree. And a category, first of all, I would never, I mean, this is technology that I love today. I never thought that I would ever see a probiotic that was shelf stable. I mean, we were taught that if it wasn't in the refrigerator,
Yep.
you should not recommend it. And all of a sudden we started getting shelf stable probiotics. And to me, that was a big thing. And also how probiotics were talked about when I was a young person in the industry. You take it for 7 days after an antibiotic, and then you put it away. You don't use it anymore. And today, I think it's really become a very big sector. And, things we never used to talk about, like vitamin D and omega-3s, they were on the bottom shelf in the store. No one ever talked about them, and how they had become very, very important and very visible in the industry. So there's been some really great changes that I really like. But I wish we could make sure the quality was same, everybody was transparent, the selections were from companies that had integrity and quality and passion, because that makes it better for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. Probiotics is a good example of that. We're really at the tip of the iceberg for what's coming down the line as far as probiotics. I mean, they're getting into specific strains that have very specific actions in the body. They used to be much more general in the support gut health, which then can support immune and brain and other things. Now you can take specific, bacteria, microbiome substances and really guide the body in certain ways to the point where they can do some of the things that we've been using pharmaceuticals for. So that's an extraordinarily promising area, but we really are only it's in its infancy. So the next 10 years, I think we'll see amazing growth and some amazing products coming out of it.
That'll be great because then you and I will be in our 40s. That'll be fantastic. So I got to tell you, one of the things that I've learned a lot from you over the years. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time, and one of the things that you were talking about when no one else was talking about it was mushrooms. And I went to breakfast lectures at expos, I don't know how many times. You were talking about things that people's heads were spinning around backwards. And I will personally say that I did so many shows on mushrooms, and it took forever for it to actually start taking hold. And it's nice where they are today, and it's getting better, and people are very interested, and they're like learning about it for the first time. And you go to Asia where they've been doing it for 700-800 years, even longer. And here we are thinking about being brand new. So I like the face of people that are starting to open their mind up to mushrooms, because I know it's your passion.
Yeah, the mushrooms are a good example of something that we've been using, literally, as you mentioned, for centuries, cordyceps reishi, for literally a couple thousands of years. So you've had that long hands-on experience, but in the last 75 years, it's been a gradual trend of more and more and more research. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies now on reishi on PubMed. So it's a growing area. And we're going beyond, most people, when you say mushrooms, or if you go into a health food store, where do you find the mushroom category? It's always in the immune category. And, we're now finally branching out and recognizing that there's more to these mushrooms than just their benefits to the immune system. And even some of these, outside the immune energetics actually end up supporting the immune system indirectly. For instance, we talked about probiotics. Mushrooms are a wonderful prebiotic. They do wonderful things for the digestive tract, and many of the benefits they have, even as it relates to the brain or immune system, are because of the benefits it brings to the digestive tract. So they're really nice holistic remedies backed by science and backed by centuries of use. And I mean, what more could you ask for in a remedy? It's to me, it's got everything.
And the other thing about it is, it's not new, to your point, to the point we're trying to make. These have been around a very, very long time. And I love that there's amazing studies that are available. But, you hit on something, because people categorize things, and most people do put mushrooms into only the immune category. But, there's mushrooms out there that are known for one thing, but in other parts of the world, they're known for other things, like lion's mane. People know lion's mane. They love it for cognitive health and for brain function and things like that. But lion's mane has other categories as well that people may not know about.
Yeah, that's an excellent example of where the gut benefits may be actually more important than those brain benefits. In fact, one of the researchers who's done some of the more technical research on it suggests that its brain benefits are not primarily by stimulating that nerve growth factor and those direct brain benefits. He's actually suggesting that the primary benefits that we get for the brain are because it does such wonderful things for the gut. So it improves the microbiome, and improves the balance in the microbiome, increases numbers of those good cells, those good bacteria in the microbiome. And that, again, has just such diverse benefits to the brain, cardiovascular system, otherwise. So with lion's mane, potent antioxidant, does have immune benefits, good for the cardiovascular system. There are a number of things it brings to the table that go beyond just those brain benefits. Now, it is an incredible, let's not overlook that, it is the number one, I think, most effective and fastest acting brain supplement, aside from like getting some exercise. You get exercise, you're going to get a spike, improve brain function just in that immediacy. But if you're looking for something, that works in a matter of days, you can't go wrong with lion's mane. It's going to support the brain, help the brain regenerate itself, protect the brain, protect the cells. We're seeing more and more research on these glial cells in the brain that lion's mane seems to affect positively there too. So it's working on that plaque. It's protective. It's working with the glial cells that help clean up the gunk that's in our brain. Then you throw in these holistic benefits, with the gut in particular, and again, it's a nice holistic brain supportive remedy in that regard. And one other area I mentioned most people don't know of is sleep apnea. There are 2 or 3 clinical studies using lion's mane for sleep apnea, showing improvements in sleep quality, less waking up, improvements in oxygen uptake, profound impact for something that, I never would have thought applying it to sleep apnea, but it's nice that there are clinical studies behind it now for that.
During the pandemic, I was in Arizona and I was traveling, and of course, almost nothing was open. And near the hotel I was staying at, there was a little vegan restaurant, and I went in and I said, "Are you open?" And she says, "Oh my goodness, yes." So I came in and I sat down, and she brought me instantly water, and then she brought me this little bowl, these little white chunks in it. And I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Enjoy it." It was warm. It looked like it had butter and had some onions and garlic in it. So I took a bite of it, and I was just like, "Lobster and scallops?" And she goes, "No." And she goes, "Take another bite." So I took another bite, and I said, "This is lobster or scallop." She goes, "No, that's lion's mane." And I fell in love with it because I'd never eaten it before. And I thought to myself, because not all wonderful functional mushrooms are really edible, but this was absolutely delicious, and I have prepared it a couple times since then. It is quite amazing. Have you eaten it before?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of doing some lectures in Hong Kong a number of years ago, and the host took me out to a restaurant that specialized in mushroom dishes. And now they had mushrooms that are on the menu that we don't even have English words for, but the one dish that I really fell in love with was the one that was built around the lion's mane mushroom. And I had a day off after the lectures and stuff that were done. I went back to that restaurant and ate my lunch and my dinner there. That's sad in many ways because Hong Kong has a lot to offer as far as restaurants and stuff goes. But here's this opportunity for me to really indulge in these delicious mushrooms. But yeah, they really do have that wonderful seafoody flavor to them. And now you can get them. I mean, we have them in grocery stores here in Georgia. So if you can find them here in Georgia, you can probably get them most places nowadays.
It's fun. I have a friend that lived in China for a long time, and he comes over to visit. And every time he comes over, he has a place here, so he invites everybody over, and he does stir fries with like bok choy and garlic and lion's mane and shiitake mushrooms, and he does these wonderful dishes. And you're just taking a bite, and your eyes are rolling back in your head because of the seasonings and the sensations. Food is my love language. I love food. So if you can savor something that's actually good for you, because eating the mushrooms is a great way to get the nutrients. Of course, supplementation is great as well.
Yeah, I have a question for you since you're talking about liking Chinese food. That they really like fish heads. Are you a fish head eater?
I'm one of those people that will try anything once.
Okay.
And that was definitely one thing that I tried once. And you know what? When I closed my eyes, I actually kind of enjoyed it, but I couldn't get past the visual in my head. So there's a Finnish soup. I think it's called kolomayaka, which is a fish head soup.
Yeah.
That my neighbor had. His father was Finnish. We were growing up, and the one time he put it in the bowl and the head was just staring up at me, I was like, this is not happening. So I'll try anything like once, just to really experiment because I love food so much, but couldn't go there. So talk to me a little bit about, what's going on. We just launched a line of mushrooms at Kokora. It's going really well. We've also added one regenerative herb to every one of the mushroom formulas to really support it and give it, a little bit more bang, a little bit more effectiveness. But let's talk about mushrooms, the difference in the kind of different mushrooms. Like I've been using mycelium mushrooms for a long time. I also have used fruiting body mushrooms. There's kind of a little bit of a, I wouldn't call it a friction. I just think it's two different ways of using mushrooms. I think they both definitely bring something to the plate very beneficial. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We're really talking apples and oranges. I know in the industry, one company likes one, another company likes another, and sometimes they go at each other. To me, it's not that one is, that you need to even compare them. It's like, which is better, an apple or an orange? They're both, they both have benefits to you. And I think the same is true with that. The concern I have, and I'm a fruiting body fan in general, I think cordyceps is an exception to that. But it really depends on how those mycelium are arrived at. Most companies, particularly in the US, that are making mycelio-based product are growing it on some sort of grain, sawdust, something of that sort. Generally, it's a grain because you're going to harvest this mycelium. You can't separate it from the grain you grow it on, so it's got to be something that's edible. The problem is you can't separate that mycelium from the grain that it's growing on. And case in point, it's now been probably 5 years. An independent peer-reviewed study was published that looked at 19 reishi products. They pulled them off of the shelf, either at health food stores or from Amazon. They analyzed them. 14 of the 19 did not show any reishi in their products. Those were primarily mycelial, grown on grain products. Only 5 of the products actually showed there's actually reishi in this product. Now, that doesn't mean the other things aren't beneficial. What it means is it's not reishi. It's bringing other things to the table, and that's where I have issues. Don't call it reishi mushroom. Mushroom, by definition, is fruiting body. If you look up mushroom, it's by definition the fruiting body. So make it clear to people that what you're getting is mycelium grown on grain. Now, you can get mycelium, particularly more in Asia, where they grow it through a fermentation process. You see that more with cordyceps, because cordyceps is normally grown on caterpillars. You know, a lot of people are going to have those issues. The fish had issues. They're going to have the same issues with a mushroom that's grown on caterpillars. So you can grow that through a fermentation process, so you don't get that grain, that biomass that you have to be concerned with. So yeah, I'm a fruiting body fan. If you look at how they've been used traditionally, fruiting body is how it's been used. In most cases, most of the research is on fruiting body. There are, I think, some exceptions. So it really depends on what kind of mycelium product you're getting. But by doing fruiting body, you're free of that. You don't have to worry about it. You can extract it. You don't have to worry about, getting grains or other things that are, maybe mixed into it. And again, independent studies have shown these mycelia grown on grain could be anywhere from 60 to, I think, 85, 90% grain. So again, if I'm going in a store and I'm buying a reishi product, I would like it to be mostly reishi, not mostly, rice or oatmeal or something, and then only some reishi. So I just think we need to be really clear. You talk about, people being really upfront, being really clear about what you're actually producing. And I think it's really important that we let people know what they're getting and what they're not getting.
They use the word substrate a lot, and people are reading about that. And that actually is the method, or the actual where they grow it on is the substrate, correct?
Yes. And that's important too. If you use fruiting body, you can grow it on a substrate that is their natural substrate, right? So you can get reishi grown on logs. You can get shiitake grown on logs. Maitake is generally grown on sawdust. So you can get it grown on what they would be growing on in their natural habitat. That affects the constituents that are in there, the amounts of those constituents, and I think it has a dramatic impact on the energetics of those compounds. If you're going to do a mycelium-based product, you've got to grow it on something that's edible. Logs, sawdust, not edible in that regard. And I ask people, what is the natural food source for these, for these mushrooms? It's not rice, it's not grains. Most of these are wood grown, agaricus being kind of an exception to it, that grows in the ground. So you got to look and grow them on their natural habitat. For instance, poria. Poria is a mushroom that grows underground on pine roots. So if you're growing it on rice, let's say, is it really the same thing as growing it underground on pine roots? So I think, by using the fruiting body, it allows us, to grow them in the ways that, nature intended for these things to be grown.
So where does the beta glucan kind of conundrum come in? Beta glucans, fruiting body, beta glucans in mycelium. Where's the better source of the beta glucans?
Well, it depends on what beta glucans you're looking for to some degree, but again, more times than not, it's the beta glucans that are found in the fruiting body. Again, depending on the mushroom, there aren't black and white rules for this. Sometimes the mycelium will have some unique beta glucans as well. So it really varies from point to point. The issue is probably less with beta glucans than it is with other compounds. For instance, we've been talking about reishi as an example of this. Reishi mycelium doesn't have triterpenes. Triterpenes are just as important as the beta glucans and polysaccharides are for the benefits of reishi, particularly if you're using it for those balancing actions, which I think is the real gift that reishi brings to the table. So you get different things in it, with the fruiting body than you do with mycelium. They contain different constituents, and it's less about beta glucans, although again it varies. But fruiting body tends to be a better source for them. But the other compounds oftentimes aren't found, in the mycelium that you find in fruiting body. And kind of an addendum to this is also why you need to extract these things in order to access those beta glucans. Beta glucans are, a fiber-like compound. If we were just to eat the mushrooms, you're only going to get so much of those immune benefits and other things out of eating them. So, and they're great to eat, probiotics and other, prebiotic otherwise. But if you really want those therapeutic benefits, those health benefits, make sure those mushrooms are extracted. That's another really important point as far as the quality of the product that's going out there.
Are there people that should not use functional mushrooms?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, most of the mushrooms, if not all the mushrooms that are in common use in the U.S., tend to boost immune responses. So I think you need to be careful with autoimmune disorders. Not saying they can't be used. I think reishi is wonderful for that. Even the maitake, which has a strong, pronounced immune effect to it, and probably the strongest of the mushrooms, has been shown to be useful in some autoimmune situations, conditions. So you need to be a little more careful. Definitely, though, not with people who are going through, who've had an organ transplant, or something to that degree. So, if that's a concern, stay away from those. There used to be the issue, and it comes up when people are asking questions about them. What about candida? Can I use mushrooms if I have a systemic candida yeast infection? And the general answer used to be always no, you can't have them. The issue with that is not so much the mushrooms per se, it's where do mushrooms grow? Dark, damp environments. Guess what else grows in dark, damp environments? Bacteria, molds, other yeasts and things. Those are the things that people are reacting to. So people with systemic yeast infections probably should not be eating them. But if they're extracted properly, in fact, I would say they're beneficial because, again, remember, these mushrooms grow in these dark, damp environments. They've got to compete against these yeasts and molds and even other fungi. So they actually develop responses to it. So shiitake mushroom is part of my protocol for systemic yeast treatment because it is such a powerful antifungal. At the same time, it strengthens the body, strengthens the immune system, has liver benefits, all those things you'd want to be doing, with a systemic yeast infection.
I think back of the lectures that you were giving on this, and it was just like, we all excited about it, but it just seemed like the industry was just moving slowly, next to it. And, here we have all this information. It wasn't moving as fast as it should have been. And I'm so glad it is now, because now it even seems like the food side is really jumped on and has started to incorporate the functional mushrooms. I mean, whether you're getting a lot or not, at least they are. I don't know if they're doing it to make the labels pretty. But the thing is, I think that the food side is really starting to, kind of focus on functional mushrooms in what they're making.
Yeah, I've seen lines. I mean, now, and I mean, anything you can imagine. There's tons of coffees out there with mushrooms in them. I'll question the value of them because how much of these mushrooms are actually in there and are they extracted? That's a whole conversation. But you can get booze, you can get condiments, you can find lion's mane now that, they've added. Now it's probably sprinkled into a lot of these things. But again, it's just showing the success that the industry's had. It's the success that the mushrooms have had. And, to some degree, get any kind of mushrooms in that you can. And, even, the lowly button mushroom for a long time was poo-pooed by mushroom aficionados. Now we know it has some amazing benefits, particularly for estrogenic positive breast cancers. So, get the mushrooms in, even if it's sprinkled in, get the mushrooms.
Someone wanted me to ask you this question, and they're going through, they've been doing everything natural for a while, and they had a resurgence of their cancer. And their doctors, actually, they're treating at Scripps Clinic and Mayo Clinic. And they decided that they wanted them to go ahead and do their nutrition along with it. They're very open to it. And the one thing they're not sure about is the use of functional mushrooms during radical chemotherapy and radiation. I know it's a personal thing, but what would you say to that?
Well, it depends to some degree, obviously, on the specific chemo or specific treatment that's going on. In general, again, we're speaking in generally here. Most of the research has suggested that these mushrooms are beneficial when going through chemotherapy. If you're concerned about doing it during chemo, then start them up after. It can help recover, particularly get your immune system up. Chemo attacks fast reproducing cells. Your immune system are fast reproducing cells. So that's one of the things that get depleted during chemo. So taking these things afterwards can rebuild the body up. But there are studies with maitake and turkey tail or Coriolis mushroom specifically that show these are not only beneficial as far as decreasing the negative side effects, the hair loss, the pain, nausea, vomiting, the decrease in red and white blood cells, but they've actually been shown to potentiate those chemo agents. So they do more of what they're supposed to do, which is killing those cancer cells. So some of them work really, really well with them. Again, I can understand people's concern. If you don't have a practitioner that is, comfortable and familiar with these things, then wait until you're done the treatment and add it into the mix then. But there certainly is a growing body of research suggests that can be used together. But be careful. Talk to your medical team. Talk to your pharmacist. Talk to a holistic practitioner who has some experience. Maybe using mushrooms in these situations.
I agree 100%. And if you're on the fence, wait till your therapy's over and then do it as the rebuilding process. And that's where diet and supplements really, really shine, because they're in there doing the rebuilding, and they're going in after the hurricane, and rebuilding everything that got destroyed. And I think that's really, really important as well, because I think that's a big missing component of a lot of the therapies that are out there. People make it through the therapy, they're happy they got through it,
Yeah.
and they're thinking about the therapy, but they're not thinking of all the hard pressed damage that happened while it was in there. So it's really important to search yourself out somebody that can give you some guidance about the rebuilding process. That was a good point.
Yeah, I think for the longest time, it was like, let's treat it. We treated it. And most people who got through it to that point are just like, oh, now I'm done with it. I don't have to worry about it. If you can recover faster, if you can build your body's response to it, you can still make those things work better. And then, maybe you don't have to go through as many rotations, so many, treatment times. I've known people who have gone through chemo 7, 8 times. The stress that puts on the body. So, there's no downtime when you're working with cancer. You may be done with the conventional treatment, but there's still many, many things you can be doing, starting first and foremost with diet.
Agreed. So do me a favor. First of all, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. I know we don't get to talk as much as we do, and we need to be better about that. But I love what you do. I love all the things you've done. I like what you're doing, and I'm just thinking about all the wonderful things you're going to do moving forward, and I thank you for that. Would you mind leaving everybody with a thought for the day? A Mark Kaylor thought of the day.
Yeah, that's a good one. I wish I had prepped for this one. First, let me congratulate you. We had a little chat before we came on air, recording about all the things you're doing. So kudos to you, and thanks for getting the word out and sharing that with everybody. I think my preference would be people to move their focus away from symptoms, move the focus away from being sick, illness, and those types of things, and start embracing a path where you're really maximizing your health and vitality. It's not a matter of, if I take this, am I going to get sick from it? Am I going to take this? Or if I eat these foods, is it going to make me healthier? Is it going to make me a better me? Is it going to make it possible for me to fulfill my purpose, to pursue my dreams? Take things, reorient our focus to, again, I use the word radiant health, be the best you can possibly be, embrace those things that can do it, and then, let go of those things that don't feed that process.
I love that. I'm going to steal it. Thank you. I always get such great ideas from my guests. Thank you. I've been talking with Mark Kaylor today. I hope you love what you heard. And do me a favor, make sure to go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com. If you tap on the blue Honest Health logo, it'll take you to Spotify, and you can listen to any of the audios of all the podcasts. But if you tap on the YouTube logo, it'll take you to the YouTube channel. Of course, you want to subscribe, of course. And you can listen to and watch any of the interviews, and I hope that you will enjoy that. Having people on like Mark is great for the platform and great for my listening audience, because you're getting people with passion and experience and so much knowledge. And I love being able to be a part of this and having you here. It was great checking in with you again. Will you come back and see us again?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And as soon as we sign off, I'm going to YouTube and I'm signing up, Jeffrey.
That'll be fantastic. Everybody have a fantastic day. Make sure you pull this up. Bring your friends, drag your friends, have them tune in. Really good information we imparted here today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.